Ableton have just announced and released a new app called Ableton Note, which is an app designed for quick sketching out of musical ideas. Remember that for later. And in this video, I wanted to share with you an overview of the app as well as some of my initial first impressions and thoughts after playing around with it for a week or so. Hey friends, my name's Matt, aka Martil, and if you're new here, welcome. So I have been lucky enough to be given pre-release access to a version of Ableton Note, and I've been playing around with it for the past week or so, and I have some thoughts. But before we get into that, I did just want to say that Ableton did give me a pre-release version of Note to play around with before the public release. However, Ableton do not have any influence over what I'm saying in this video, and every opinion that I'm giving is my own. Also, the version that I've been playing with may differ slightly from the publicly released version, but I doubt that's going to be the case. So if you like the video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe if you're new, buy me a coffee if you'd like to support me further. But before we get into my thoughts about Note, I just want to dive in and give you a quick overview of the kind of creative process with the app. Okay, so when you open up Note, you're kind of greeted with this main screen. By default, it has 3 sets here, I think, and you can see I've added a bunch more. There's some options down in the bottom left, Ableton Cloud, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit, but really you can just go and you can just add a new set. You can play audition any of the sets you've got there, but I'm just going to click on new, and you'll see that it automatically populates it with a few different things here. The one on the left is a drum kit by default, and so we can just literally tap new and come and create a beat really quickly, like. And it's got a capture MIDI function, and now I've got a really basic drum beat. I can click this button down the bottom in the middle to duplicate that, and now I could maybe add like some hi-hats using the repeat function. So I tap that, tap repeat, maybe go to 8th notes here. Hit the add button again, and that add button basically functions as like a capture MIDI control as in Ableton Live. And then if I want to edit any of these in the clip, I can tap on the clip here. I can maybe select all of our hi-hats here, and I can go to the velocity tab and then maybe like vary the velocity of them slightly. There's no randomize velocity feature like there is in Ableton Live. I wish that was an option here. I don't know why it's not, but it's not. And now we can play this. Now you can hear that it's kind of also doing some compression and stuff here. So we can go to our kit effect, and we can see there's a saturator on here that's quite heavily driven. So I can maybe turn down the drive, turn up the dry wet a little bit. And you'll see that whenever I move any of these controls up here, it automatically creates like a captured automation line, which is quite cool and can be really useful for adding some movement stuff later on. And you'll see we've got access to like change things on each of the different pads, like the filter controls and stuff like that. It's basically a simpler in here. And then you've got access to change the actual sample. You can re-record over the sample. So if I wanted to make this a different sound, I could re-record that in there. And I've got effects on the pad as well. So you've got effects per pad and effects per the whole kit with drum racks. But if we go and maybe go to like a bass sound right here, it's pretty cool. I might actually want to change this scale, so I can go up to the top right, go to my key and scale, and maybe make this in E minor, hit done. And now I've got like basically a push layout of E minor. Let's change the sound now, so I can go and tap on this thing in the middle at the top. This FM pluck bass sounds kind of cool. And it was kind of not super well played, so now I can just hit this button down here, which is the quantize button. And now we've quantized that. That first one still wasn't too well played, so I can go and select this, and then I can nudge it to the left or right. I might want to nudge it to the right by a 16th note. So I now have moved it by a 16th note. But I can't just like click and drag the note. You got to nudge it. And again, now if I want to turn it down, I've got to go back to this main kind of session view, tap on this, and then turn it down. I can't turn it down from within the track itself. What is cool though, if I want to just change the sound, I can just tap up there and I can maybe make it a knock bass. I can also go and I can change some of the effects. So I've got 2 effects per sound. Kind of cool. Can move some of these things around. And then maybe let's just add like another layer in here just for the sake of it. So let's go to our keys layer, which by default is a sampler. So I can record in my own sample, which is kind of cool. I don't really want to do that right now, but if I just tap on here, I can go to my core library. That's all my samples actually. I got to go back here, load in a new instrument, and then I can go to maybe back here and go to something like my rhythmic and go to like a ecstatic pluck, which is kind of interesting. So I can play this, go hit done. So I've chosen that. Change some of these parameters a little bit. Double is a bit much. LFO amount's a bit much. So that's kind of cool. So now I can play that. Created the clip. If I want to duplicate it, I can. Now I've just added like an extra note in there on the next clip. And if I want to duplicate the length of this, I can go into the clip, I can just select all of those, and now it's duplicated that, and I could maybe add in like a variation that second time around. And again, if it's kind of out of time or whatever, I can just quantize it and it's all fine and dandy. And then once we've kind of built this out, we can start creating some variations in our scene here. I can maybe move some of these clips around. So we could start with all this, and then you can export your track from Note itself. If you go up to, I believe, this top right section right here, and you can export the audio. You can export it as either a WAV or an M4A, and that's gonna, as it says there, export an audio file containing an ordered sequence of all the scenes, and it defaults to the length of the longest clip in the scene. But if you actually want to use Note kind of basically more how it's intended, this is where you would now export the bundle file, which is a new kind of type of file, into Ableton Live and then work with it in there. And that is generally going to be done through Ableton Cloud, which is this new kind of cloud-based platform for sharing specifically bundle files between Note and Ableton Live. And this is done if I go back to my kind of main page here, I can select the set I just made, and I can upload it to Ableton Cloud. Now you've got to link your Note account to your Ableton account, and you've got to link your Ableton Live software to that Ableton Cloud account as well. Very easy to set up. And then if we go into Ableton Live, we can see here on our left in the browser, we have underneath packs, we have this new section called Cloud. And this is where your Ableton Cloud sessions are stored. And we can see down the bottom, set 6 is downloading. That's going to take a second to download. And now it's downloaded, and I can see set 6 here. I can open it up. I can double click on set 6, which is a .abl file. And now I can see the session opened up inside of Ableton Live, and I can play it. And I can now start producing the track fully inside of Ableton Live. And that's kind of the general workflow of Note. That's what it's really designed around. There's not a lot of functionality in the app itself for refining these ideas into full fleshed out songs. Instead, it's really a sketch pad for these ideas. And that kind of brings me to what I like and what I don't like about Ableton Note. I really like how quick and easy it is to get up and running with ideas. You saw how quick and easy it was for me to just like open up Note, immediately start putting in a beat, which is awesome. I think that Ableton Cloud is a really fantastic addition here. I think it's a really great way of sharing quickly between Note and Ableton Live. And I love that you could just be working on the train and then it uploads to Cloud and it's on your computer by the time you get home. Cloud is limited to only 5 sets though, but it's kind of okay because every time you make an addition to anything you've saved in Cloud on the computer, you have to save it as a new version. You can't save it back into Cloud. There's no kind of cross compatibility between Live and Note. I think it's really cool that the workflow is very similar to Push 2. I really like Push's workflow, and I think there's definitely clearly some inspiration from that inside of Note. And of course, you know, the sounds are all pretty decent because they're selected from Ableton stock library sounds, as well as some extra stuff in there. You get access to the effects and stuff like that, or at least some of the effects. So the sounds themselves are pretty good. But what I am not the biggest fan of here is just the lack of ability to kind of refine these sketches, even still within the sketch stage. There's no ability to kind of lengthen MIDI notes. There's no ability to sequence notes, which for people who might not play rhythms in very well can be a little bit frustrating. I'd love to be able to have things like the legato and the double and half MIDI notes and lengths and stuff that are inside of Ableton Live that aren't in Note. And why aren't there things like the velocity randomization and the note chants? That would seem like a really easy thing to add, and it's inside of Ableton Live. Why isn't it in Note? There's also things with the MIDI player, like it takes a while to change octave. I didn't show you that in the overview, but you've got to kind of tap a button and then tap another button and then tap another button to just simply change the octave that's showing on screen. Why can't I just kind of swipe up and down? I feel like there's a lot of user experience and interface improvements that could be made by using things like swipe gestures on the app, which I've experienced in other mobile music making apps that just Ableton Note is falling a little bit short on. The selection of effects is a little bit limited. It's mostly what's included in intro minus a few things. I think it'd be cool to have everything that's included in intro, live intro, that is. There's also no ability to delete any automation that you've added. You can delete clips and stuff, but I can't delete automation, which seems a little bit strange. And also a lack of audio tracks is a big one. I know a lot of people who want to be using this will probably want to be like humming in melody, musical ideas and stuff, and they can't do that, right? If it's a sketch pad for musical ideas, why not have the ability to have like one audio track where you can hum in a melody or lyrics or something like that, so that you can take it back to the computer and work on that if you're a songwriter more than like a producer of electronic music, right? And just in general, I think the workflow is a little bit slow and could be improved. There's also no ability to like change the start position of clips easily that I found. You can change clip lengths and stuff, which is fine, but I can't change the start position of a clip. And also the export function is a little bit limiting, because it means that if you want to export the track, set out your track in terms of arrangement, you can't just like perform an arrangement, which is something that if you're using session view in Ableton Live, that's like the best thing to be able to do, right? Perform out your arrangement rather than kind of sequencing it in order. You get the ability to like perform the individual clips. So in general, there's really cool things about this idea, but there's also some vast room for improvement, and it really could be a lot better from my viewpoint. Now, of course, this is just all first impressions, and there's plenty of room for Ableton to change and improve this software later on down the line. Also, I suppose I should mention, I think the app is going for about $5.99 USD, which is a pretty decent price. It's pretty cheap, but whether or not you're willing to pay that is totally over to you. So I said something at the start of this video about this app being designed for the quick sketching out of musical ideas. And that is exactly what this app is. It is not a fully functional mobile digital audio workstation. Instead, it's kind of more of a companion app to the live software, which puts it in an interesting position. On one hand, it does function really well as a sketchpad for musical ideas, but I feel like there could be more features in the app for further refining these ideas, even just before you take them into Ableton Live to actually complete them. And I know there are some really good mobile digital audio workstation apps out there, so it seems like a really interesting space for Ableton to kind of be competing. The app is really for avid Ableton Live users who want a way of really quickly and easily generating ideas and sketching out ideas on the go. But if you're after a fully functional mobile digital audio workstation solution, then Note is not that. Maybe Ableton will add some more features in the future to kind of push it more in that direction. And I know there's actually a feedback option in the app to send feedback to the developers, and I know that Ableton is going to be monitoring that pretty closely. But I don't expect it to move away from this core idea of just being more like a notepad than anything else. Hence the name Ableton Note. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Ableton Note. I don't know how much I'm going to be using it in the future. Maybe if they add some updates, I'll use it a little bit more. If this video helped you, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below, and let me know if you're going to be picking up Note and what you think of the app as well. Anyway, that's it from me. If you enjoyed the content, feel free to head over and support me by buying me a coffee. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the next video.